audio and visual podcast, a weekly discussion about all things guitar building and some random tangents as well, featuring members of the Guitar Builders Collective from all around the world. The Guitar Builders Collective is a like-minded group of individuals that have come together to share their experiences, knowledge and inspiration for guitar building. Each week you can join us in the live YouTube chat or catch up at a later point. It's also available as audio, where you'll miss out on seeing our lovely faces and some of the visuals we share along the way. You can also find the Guitar Builders Collective via our forum, over on Instagram, where we share images of members' builds. We've got a thriving Facebook group, and we do hope that no matter what your experience and knowledge is, you'll become a welcome member of this community too. Fantastic. Great.
Hey.
What's up, guys?
Good afternoon.
Yeah, all good. I've just noticed Owen's collection of glasses.
I'm doing my Todd impression.
It's only three.
It's only three. Yeah, I always feel that Todd's videos, the quality of Todd's videos and the knowledge about to be imparted is directly proportional to the number of glasses on his head.
So, welcome everyone. If you're listening, you're missing out on this. So don't forget, we're on YouTube, but also obviously the audio podcast. And we go live every Thursday. So today it's myself, Daniel from Devil & Sons in the UK, and Mark Gutierrez over in America.
Hello.
Joined by Owen from Entropia Guitars over in Ireland.
Digwood.
The three of us are quite regular on here. We've got a return guest and a new guest, both of whom collaborate together in different ways. So many things to talk about. So our return guest is Todd from Sweet Tea Guitars. Hey, Todd.
Hey, brother. How are y'all?
I forgot to double check, Todd, but I think you were maybe our second or third guest. Owen has forgotten. He's going to hide Owen on the screen. Owen probably didn't realise the mute doesn't work for some reason. So we might have Owen in his voice as well. And we're also joined by Gio over in Italy. Hey, Gio.
Hi, how are you doing?
Great, thank you. So Gio's from Tornelli Guitars. Gio, as you haven't been on before, we definitely want to get back to later on talking a bit about how you got into guitar building and Tornelli guitars and things.
Yeah.
But I'm sure some of the things we're going to talk about today are other things like tools. You and Todd have just launched a new business, Bench Critters, so with tools. So we're going to talk about that, I'm sure. But what I'm really interested in is finding out a bit about how you and Todd met each other and started collaborating. Because for many people that we've had on here before as guests and in the chat, both of you are people who have been cited as YouTubers who have helped sort of people in their early career of building and people further on finding out more information about building. Your YouTube channel is sort of the amazing learning tool. And was it through that you two met each other? Just through the sort of YouTube community?
Yeah, I think Todd, it was initial. What was it, like 4 years ago? I think for GGBO that I started watching your channel, because one of the first things that I noticed, when you click through all of the GGBO videos, was that you were just interesting to listen to, and you seem to have no problem about being on camera. And as somebody who's really struggled with it and still does, that was one of the things that I noticed. So I think I started watching your videos quite early on, and I know that you had way more subscribers than me at the time, but somebody put a comment on one of my videos to say it was quite a sad thing basically, but said I could, do with any help that you could give me. I can't remember exactly what it said. To build a guitar, that would be really good. And I got in touch with you, I think that same day, and said, there's someone I'd like to help. How about it? You've got a bit more exposure on the community, more people follow you. Do you think we could just do something? And that's how we met initially. That was the first time that we talked.
It was indeed. And what a success that was as well. That was so cool, man. I had a great time doing that. And it was, onward from there. We just immediately started talking back and forth, first messaging each other on Instagram. Then that turned to video chat, and my life's never been the same.
And the same for me. I think we're in that kind of niche where it's pretty much all one guy in the shop, right? That's how we all do it. And I think when we started talking, certainly for me anyway, because immediately we have this kind of similar sort of sense of humor, and we had such a laugh just as soon as we started talking. And actually we still do, because every time we go to shoot a video, we have this standing joke that we have like an hour's worth of outtakes followed by 10 minutes of salvageable content. And that's pretty much how it goes. But it's a really nice, I find it a really nice break from just being on my own in the shop. I think you're probably, I don't know how you feel about it, Todd, probably the same.
Oh man, I love it. I mean, when we first did that first collaboration, you know, on the first guitar, it was such a refreshing thing to be able to talk back and forth to someone and work through issues and discuss ideas. And that's what this has really become about, is just us bouncing ideas off each other. That's the part of it I love the most, you know.
That has absolutely helped me, because I think I've said to you a few times, I've really changed the things that I do based on discussions that we've had and things that we do. Like I was always doing bolt-on neck guitars just because I like that whole simplicity of it, until we started talking back and forth. And now I pretty much, all of my guitars are set necks now, because I like that whole stacking the heel, doing the carving thing. But that was your influence, definitely. It gives you more option, doesn't it, for doing pretty things with the wood.
So when you first started chatting, then was that all through text, or did you actually initiate some sort of call with each other?
It was. We had quite a few WhatsApp messages. I can't remember if we had a call when we were looking to get those telly parts for Laurel. I think we probably did. And I don't know how long it's been. It's been years now since we just talk on video, like every day, a couple of times a day.
We're besties. He's my best buddy.
I mean, I've got to say, one reason we initiated doing this live stream each week was because watching people on YouTube was brilliant. Chatting with them in the comments was good. We had WhatsApp conversations, but none of it seemed to be quite as good as a proper chat, a proper conversation. So it's just an excuse, really, to talk to each other. I'd never really thought about just like contacting someone, having a call with them. I always thought it had to be a YouTube related thing, because that's what we were all doing at the time. But yeah, it sounds like having that regular chat, not just a time one we have to do every week, has led to a lot more for you two.
Yeah, I think one of the nice things is that we're all fundamentally quite nerdy about this stuff, right? So when you get in touch with somebody, if you've got a question or you just want to have a chat about something, or ask where do you get your neckwood from, all of this kind of thing. How do I do this part of building a guitar? But it's so easy to just get in touch with someone, and they're always in this community, always receptive and helpful. You know, we've had video chats before now, just to go through bits and pieces, but it's great to get in touch with people on just a personal level and have a chat.
Yeah, I gotta say the video chat for me was fantastic, and it really just emphasized what you're saying, is that, you know, everything we do as one guy in the shop transcends just being involved in social media. There's a sense of community, and I didn't feel that when I was contacting you for help in how to do neck profiling, and I had a few little questions about fretting and so on, I didn't feel like reaching out and talking to you was too intrusive, because there was already a relationship there through YouTube, and it just felt like a natural step to reach out and have a video chat, right? And then it turned out that it was a great chat, and we spent 10 minutes talking about guitars and 15 minutes talking about assorted other nonsense. But the same, funny enough, Daniel, has happened with me and I'm blanking on names now. The Australian, God, what's his name? I'm going to go to my chats. Corey. Corey chats me every day. In the morning, I wake up and the first thing I have are Instagram chats from Corey and you know, messages and stuff like that. And honestly, developing friendships out of the community is great. And I think, you know, it's obvious that that's how Todd and Gio got together, because I think naturally we're all involved in the same things and we have very similar values and interests and senses of humor.
Yeah, and I think kind of being generous with your time is one of those things. Well, it's one of the the best things that you can do if you're part of any kind of makers community, because it does sort of bring people along with you, and I think it helps you in the process. And I know that Todd, that was actually one of the things that I really liked about Todd initially, and I'm not going to blow too much smoke up his because but that generosity of spirit that you've got, I think, is one of those things that is really nice to spread out into the community, you know.
Well, I mean, you know, nobody around me does the same things I do. You know, I'm sure we all have similar stories to. My whole life, I felt like a loner, you know, pretty much musician, but still in my own little world most of the time. And when I got into building, it was even more like that. I really love spending time down here by myself, but I found myself kind of running up against the wall. It's just so much better to have someone to chat with and to bounce ideas off of. Mark, I've thought about messaging you and asking you about a video call many times when I'd run up against an idea that I just couldn't figure out how to work out, you know, and I knew you'd be the guy to answer that question for me. But I've been hesitant to do that because I know I know you work a job just like I do. And, you know, it's one of those kind of times where I didn't really want to intrude on your time. You know?
It's all good. Feel free.
I've got to say that
is,
obviously all talking about the community. It's brilliant. I remember the first conversation I had with Mark was during the Great Guitar Build-Off, maybe the second year I did it. I was designing a guitar, trying to work out where to put a pickup. It was a guitar with an iPad built in it, so it had no body to put the pickup in. And Mark had some really interesting suggestions about putting the pickup under the fretboard. And yeah, so there's these conversations that were all there, and they become much clearer when you're chatting. And I just want to pick up something Gio said about that giving your time back to the community is really important. As soon as you're making videos, so when I first started watching Todd's videos, they're long videos. You're putting a lot of time in making them. Gio editing your videos, it's not a quick thing. So there's all that time that obviously we're doing not to make money out of YouTube, because it's not really happening. We're doing it to be part of that community, and it's fantastic. And if anyone doesn't know who Todd and Gio are, so Sweet Tea Guitars and Tornelli Guitars, I've linked to their YouTube channels and websites, etc., and the rest of us in the description for the podcast and the video. So go and check them out. Curtis has just said in the chat that Todd has been his go-to guy before he started his channel for advice on timbers. We all have our own specialist thing, I guess. So can we just focus in again on Todd and Gio for a moment? Because what I find interesting is we talked about no one near us. You're in different countries, but you have videos talking about making guitars where you're working together in doing that, and then kind of at some point in the future you reveal the guitars you made separately.
Yeah.
How did the idea of collaborating on a guitar in different countries first come about, and how does it really work?
I can't remember who came up with it first, Todd.
It was you.
Was it?
Hell yeah.
I usually have all the bad ideas. I think one of the things initially was the immediate thought when we started chatting was actually it might be a bit interesting because we do have quite a bit of sort of banter back and forth. It's a different dynamic to most guitar building videos, and I'm conscious that I'm thoroughly uninteresting to watch compared to Todd. So I was like, well, get us both together and it might be a bit more interesting. So we tried. What was the first the first collaboration build we did, Todd? I can't remember.
Strats.
Strat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that just came about from an idea. I think you said that you wanted to build one because you're a Strat guy, first and foremost. And I was like, well, I don't think I built one at the time, or maybe one or so. And said, let's just do it. Let's just figure out our steps that we'll take to do it. See whether we can both video it, have a couple of calls and cut it together and make a video. And it took quite a long time to get it, but when we watched it back and when we were doing it, we had really good fun doing it, and it seemed kind of interesting, you know.
Oh
But
yeah,
then,
it was a blast, man. It was a blast. But I will have to say that I know that came up because I'm a Strat guy and I wanted to build a Strat. We debated back and forth during that time on whether or not we were going to build tellies, and I can't remember what exactly shifted our mindset against that. But I think it's because we had seen so many tellies being built on YouTube. You don't see, I mean, compared to Strats, you don't see that many Strats built compared to how many tellies you see out there in the world.
Yeah.
But that also informed our opinion about how a new guitar builder did not necessarily need to build a telly, you know.
yeah, we and we're kind of that sort of thing. It leads back to Owen and his rosewood guitar, which is, my God, that's a
Oh yeah,
fantastic looking guitar. Because we had that discussion about doing a video for making your first guitar. You know, we were either going to design something and put it out there and thought we could do a series where people can follow along with it, or do we just do a thing where we give out some sort of advice for what we would do if we were to go back and build our first one. But one of them was the use interesting woods and stuff that you really love, you know, not necessarily expensive stuff. Because one of the things that I quite like to do is to buy, or we both do actually, Todd, is to buy really interesting and unique bits of wood, but they're not usually that expensive. In fact, some of my nicest looking guitars have 30 or 40 euro tops on them. And I know that you're exactly the same.
oh yeah, absolutely. I love imperfections like burl pins and things like that. You know, what most people would consider to be defects. I buy a lot of wood from the defect pile because I like that look. I like the imperfection, you know. It's a guitar, you know, it's not wall art.
I've said before, a long time ago, I hated wooden finished guitars because I was only used to seeing the off-the-shelf factory ones in the shop local to me, and they all look quite similar and they're quite boring. And it wasn't
They
until
do.
I discovered kind of luthiers that are more boutique builders who either buy fantastic bits of wood that you're not going to see on a factory one, and then think really carefully about where it's being positioned, how it's being cut, or they do what Todd's talking about. They find something unique and more interesting and make something of it. That I realised how absolutely beautiful it can be. Because to me, wooden guitars were just like the SG Epiphone SG, which was one of my first ones I bought, which was just a quite boring straight grain with a red tint on it, and I
Yeah.
loved it, but it wasn't. Well, I didn't love it because of the wood. I loved it because of the overall colour. But I've now been more drawn into that. And hearing you say that you're looking for those imperfections does make it seem more like an artwork to me.
Well, I absolutely look at guitar building as an art form first because music, it's music. It's, you know, we all build these things because I'm assuming that I know we're all musicians, you know. That's what led me to this. I got so tired of being alone trying to write music and not being I can't think like a keyboard player. I'm a drummer first, then a guitar player. And I don't have that mentality to work out all the parts of a song, but I've tried playing in a band or many bands actually. And there's always that one guy that just, you know, it falls apart for whatever reason. So when I first got into building, that's what it was for me. It was finding a way to channel that energy that I missed from playing music. And now doing both is like heaven, you know. It really is. I love it. And it's artistic. And Mark, you of all people, I think, get that more than anyone. It's about infusion of ideas, yet still coming out the other end with an instrument. Like I said, I don't think any of us are out to make wall art.
Yeah, I agree. Like I always felt early on that the marriage between like musicianship and building should be a little bit stronger, right?
Yeah.
Because they shouldn't be detached or divorced in any way.
I agree with that 100%. And I think a lot of guys battle that, you know. I think it's easier to make that connection than most people think, you know. I may be wrong.
For various reasons, I've been looking at quite a few builders recently, their websites, and also how they describe themselves in 2 lines on Instagram. It's mainly because I'm collaborating with some of them and writing something, so I want some text about them all. And it's really interesting to see how many boutique builders talk about their instruments being an extension of the music that's being played, and how that is part of their aim in the build, which I think makes a load of sense and is really admirable. And I know that from a lot of the boutique builders, they'll work with the client they're building for and discuss what it is that they need directly, which is brilliant. But I'm not saying I make wall art, because mine has to be playable.
No.
I like, for me as well, it is sometimes not just about the music they make, but the other things that go with the aesthetic of the music and the view of the music. I've been looking at, for example, Randy Rhodes' guitar, his Polka Dot V, the other day, and reading a bit about the history of that. And it's like something that he visualized. He wanted it to look like this for a reason. And that seemed to be, I don't know a lot about Quiet Riot, but it seemed to be one of their sort of visual motifs. Then came from his guitar, and then became something that is synonymous with the band. And I love that kind of connection as well, that there's so many things that the guitar can do.
There is. And Daniel, don't think for 1 minute. Yeah, I wasn't dissing on what you
no, I
do.
know you weren't. I know you weren't.
But it comes down to the end result. I say that all the time. Is that guitar playable? To me, the look comes after the feel and the tone. It's just the way it is. And I think that's all where the connection back to that musical side of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you know, the one thing that I did really take away from both of your channels, and particularly when you work together, is you both have very different building styles. Gio, you're very double bound all the time, and you have beautiful woods in the front. And then Todd on the other side is making sci-fi crazy monsters with humbuckers and Floyd Roses and crazy finishes. I think that balance is really interesting, but I'm curious, who plays your guitars? I mean, like Todd, if I look at yours, I'm like, yeah, people are playing death metal festivals and speed picking. And then Gio, I'm thinking guys playing jazz guitars in basements in Italy. Do you have customers that fit into a genre, or is it anybody in anything?
No, not really. It's kind of anybody. I think I don't get approached by guys wanting like metal guitars and high gain guitar, that kind of thing. So that tends to be the way. I think people watch a few of your videos. Once you've got a little bit of content out, then the right people kind of come to you. Do you know what I mean? So I think it tends to be those people that play the lower gain stuff, blues, jazz, that sort of thing. Although I have had, this will be an interesting one for you, Mark, because I thought above lots of things, you're an appreciator of new ideas. And I don't know, my latest commission is from a guy who wants hexaphonic pickups. Have you heard of these?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he does, it's basically, rather than having your one output for a pickup, you have one output per pole piece. So for a 2 humbucker guitar, you have 12 outputs that go out. So he wants no tone, no volume, no switching on it at all. And he does all of his tone shaping outboard, basically after the guitar. So I thought I might see whether you've heard about or whether you're familiar with those, because I'd imagine that's something that you might well be.
Yeah, they've been around for a while. I think Sci-Fi Research have like the most elegant design out there. And there's even a local place here in Austin that designs hexaphonic pickups too. And I forget their name. They're on Instagram as well. I can see all the tonal possibilities, but man, you got your work cut out for you. I mean, just the wiring alone, right?
Yeah, I think he's, so far as I understand it, I think he does some programming for modelers and stuff, and I think he's quite an electronics wizard. So one of the things he did say is, look, if you do this, I'm quite happy to if you make the guitar, I'm quite happy to do all of the electronics for it. So that was, excellent. I think I'll probably take him up on that. But they do have like an inboard and an outboard breakout board for it. So I need to route one of them in. Yeah. Inside the guitar, and then I think it's a 19-1 jack that goes out.
I think I'm getting it confused because I've used the GraphTech Ghost system before, which is like
It's a piezo system.
piezo system, and they have something called a hexpander, which converts it into MIDI. But that's different then. This is
different.
Yeah.
It's still controlling ultimately what? A stereo chain. What Gio's talking about is individual string or individual pole piece output into some type of specialty plug that goes out of the guitar to outboard gear that then you can tone shape
Right.
each string,
I
crazy.
think what Owen's picking up here for us.
Yeah, so this is a weird guitar. This is a Line 6 Variax that was transplanted into this body. It's got the biggest control cavity you've ever seen in your entire
like
life.
something I would make.
But yeah, this has individual pickups on each of the strings, and it goes into a pretty big computer in the back, and it can process each of the strings independently and apply different tones to them, retune them, detune them. So it's interesting. I've used this live because it has a super acoustic sound. It sounds like a big, dreadnought jumbo. But the wiring, oh my God, it's like spaghetti in there. I've never seen anything like it. And I bought it because somebody had it before and they broke it and they couldn't get a tech to fix the wiring. And it took me about 3 months to fault find and diagnose it and get it up and running. So be thankful and be grateful that you're fobbing off the wiring to somebody else who has more masochistic tendencies.
Hey, Owen, can you just clarify? I mean, you said it came from a Variax. So I didn't know that the Variax had hexaphonic pickups. So there are individual coils, like magnetic coils for each pole?
I don't think they're coils. I don't think it's hexaphonic, but it's a similar principle. There's an individual piezo under each of the saddles.
Like what Daniel's describing.
And they send everything out. Yeah.
Man, I see that as being such a cool thing for doing like orchestral landscape type music. I really think you could really dive deep off into some orchestral textures and things like that using that kind of technology.
Yeah. Reflecting back on last year when I built a guitar for someone that had very complicated wiring, I would tell my client, I'm not the right person for that job. But it's great, Gio, that you've got him to help with the
that was quite a result. But I did the commission just because I thought it's going to look cool. I love the idea of building a guitar just with 2 humbuckers and a bridge and nothing else on the front of the guitar. No tone, no volume, no switch. It's going to look, nice and clean and simple.
Sounds like something Mark would do. Just drag your finger up to control the volume.
Hey, look, I just want to step back a moment to what we were talking about earlier about the community side of it all, because there's something that occurred to me is, as Owen alluded to, he approached Gio because Gio had the channel with the info that he needed, and they made the connection, had a video call. I know, Todd, you told me people email you and you email back. That's how you like to communicate. But I wondered at heart, what made any one of us here want to actually make these videos? Like, why are we doing it?
I do it because I like sharing the journey and sharing the knowledge with, finding out that so many other people are into this, including all you guys. I love that sense of community, and I had no idea how great that would be when I first started this. But as we've all gone along, that's what it is for me. I love sharing that knowledge and the thought of helping someone that's never done this before get into this awesome thing. That turns me on, man. I love that part of it, And it's been a journey. I can say that. It's influenced how I build heavily, as has Gio, as have all of you. I'm influenced. You started talking about how I build these guitars that play death metal or whatever. I never set out to do that. That was never my intention. I always just wanted to build what I see in my head. And I'm the kind of person that I don't really want to take commissions. I want to build what I want to build. And then if someone wants it, I'll sell it to them.
Yeah.
But I'm not really into building someone else's vision. And I've got a commission right now that's taken me like 2 years to get hammered out because of that very reason, because I won't bend to the customer's will, which is kind of odd to say. He's paying me to build him a guitar, but there's a reason why he wants me to do it, and that's what I keep going back to.
I'm sure that attitude and that connection is something he's grateful for because he's getting you.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that's what it comes down to for me. It's the same for Gio, I'm sure. We both have a style. I haven't quite figured out what mine is yet, but all I know is I love building guitars. I love it. It speaks to something in me that I've never been this in touch with. It's really cool. Beautiful is how I would describe it.
I must link in the description. I'll put it in when we finish. So the first time you're on, Todd, because I remember you talking about that in even more detail and it being quite inspirational. So people should go back and watch that. Fantastic. That love of things comes across, and 100% not why I make my videos or started making videos, but I'm glad that as a result of making videos, I can talk to people directly about that. Because as we mentioned before, otherwise I'd be on my own every day in my workshop.
Exactly.
Go out in the morning on the school run, chat to some parents on the front, and come home and at the end of the day, that'd be my day. Maybe the postman plays guitar. He's quite a good chat, but that's about it, So this is brilliant.
Yeah, well, it's I don't like discovering that not alone part of it. I would be doing the same thing, Daniel. I work a day job. Sorry. I work a day job.
Is that your client asking for some Sorry.
No, they don't call me. I call them.
Right.
I just really like being inspired. I get inspired by this community, and the more I get into it, the more inspired I become, the more it makes me want to do this. I find myself, even on my day job, really anxious to get home and do something, whether it be edit video or build guitar or work on our bench graders deal. That's what drives my life at this point. The day job actually kind of gets in the way of that, unfortunately.
Yeah, what about yourself? Why did you initially start making, or what drives you to keep making the videos?
Sorry, that was me.
Yeah.
Initially, I started it off for GGBO. I thought I'll dive in to the community, and have a chat to some of these other guys that are making things and see how that goes. And then I thought there are some things that I do that it would have been really handy if somebody had done a video for it, just to save me a bit of time. So, and that kind of led on to continuing to make videos and doing the videos on stuff that I was really confident in doing. It took a while, and I thought at the point that I know I can do something well and consistently and repeat it, I'll pop a video up, and that's then probably going to be helpful for some people. And then beyond that, when I met Todd and we started chatting, it was just good fun. So that is kind of why I do it, and what it's led to, which has been really good, is that it's led to people asking to make them a guitar. So that is, for all those reasons, I'll keep making videos. But I do enjoy it, and I enjoy it much more, in fact, when we're doing collaborations. And for a lot of the stuff that I do, it doesn't end up going on YouTube. So it's only for things that I think will be helpful or interesting that I'll pop a video up for.
And did both of you come into this? I presume you did come in with woodworking experience before. You just didn't dive in blind.
Yeah, I made furniture long before I ever made a guitar, and I started making. I was trying to think, might pop up on this one. Why did you first start getting into guitars? But I think it was that I wanted to make something better than I could afford at the time. I think that was probably why I started making my first one.
We need a bingo card for every time there's a guest on for the answers to why they start building guitars. Because there seems to be a couple of main reasons. One is because they can't afford the guitar they want, and that is very common. I love it. So sorry, just because I've missed something here. when you started making the videos for GGBO, the Great Guitar Build Off, if people don't know what that is, you can go and look that up. Had you made guitars? Were you already making guitars prior to that, and that was the first videos you made?
Yeah, I was making guitars for a while till I started making bodies and necks, just kind of components as opposed to making full guitars. I've done a few, but that was the first. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Probably a couple of years or so before doing the first GGBO videos.
Yeah,
and that's furniture for that.
And then, how did you find out about the GGBO then?
I watched, as most people do, I'd followed Crimson, I'd followed Ben's videos for quite a long time. In fact, I think I stopped. It's been quite a few years since I've watched any of the Crimson stuff, but initially he used to do those like full series build videos, and they were really helpful. Probably the stuff that he did like 6, 7, 8 years ago, those were my go-to ones, I think, when I started, because there really wasn't anybody else on.
Yeah, I remember coming across him and the Great Guitar Build Off during lockdown, but I think I came across Crimson via people already taking part in the Great Guitar Build Off, and that becoming a thing that was recommended to me on YouTube.
Right.
Because back to what you were saying about wanting to make videos to help people, things that you can't get access to. I remember that some of the first video I made that got any traction was because I had a bridge from a cheap guitar. There was a headless bridge on a cheap guitar, and I couldn't find out how to get it to work. So I spent ages fiddling around with it, and I thought I'd make because my background is in education. I thought I'd make a video in it like I would with my arts education side that I used to do, just because if someone else got stuck, I want to be able to share what I've spent all this time trying to work out. And I really admire that concept of doing things just to share and give back to the community. I remember, I don't know if you know April Wilkinson, she's a woodworker. She actually did something with Crimson, but I remember watching her videos reflecting on when she transitioned from her day job to being a full-time YouTube woodworker. And the way she got into it was simply she wanted to do something, looked it up on YouTube, and then when she wanted to do something else and couldn't find the instructions to do it, she thought she'd better give back and did that. So she put up her video for the things she couldn't find, and it just grew for her from there. And I feel like this community, as Owen mentioned earlier, is full of people showing you how to do things, but in different ways. So you learn from all that perspective, which is what's so great about you and Todd collaborating together, getting the different perspectives on things.
Yeah, and I think we do quite a few things in different ways, but it's kind of helpful. I figure everybody finds like the person who might just have the tools that they've got, or they do it this way, and I've got everything to be able to do that, that kind of thing. It does help, because I think makers of things are inventors in terms of figuring out how to do something with the stuff that you've got a lot of the time, rather than going out and buying something new. And each channel that you come across, somebody will have figured out a way around a problem, and that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, Mark, maybe because I find that. Sorry, Todd, what were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say that Gio's had such a major influence on how I build, because I was like, before we started getting into this thing heavy with each other, I was all about the free form. I like starting a guitar build with no plan and sketching out a shape on the wood and doing it all that way, not really having any kind of preconceived notion about anything other than the thing I saw in my head. But that wound up not being very successful, So I realized throughout all the time that, I realized after a while there were certain things that I needed to follow some type of method on, especially carving a neck, because I would start carving the neck and just keep carving it until it felt like I wanted it to. There was no rhyme to the madness, And eventually I started adopting Gio's way of facet carving a neck. And now I can get a repeatable neck shape out of it every time. that was so helpful to me. And I've gathered that same kind of knowledge from so many people on YouTube that, you know, I find something that resonates with me and a method that I feel like I can adopt, and it just becomes second nature to me. That's what this has been, you know, and now I'm pretty much honed into how I like to build a guitar. And it took a long time to get there.
It's so funny that you mentioned the faceting neck thing, because I learned that process through your video, Todd. And it's funny that you've got it from Geo. So I haven't made a video on it, but I wonder if I made a video, it'd be like a chain going down, a pyramid scheme of how to make faceting necks, until maybe at some point it will evolve into something a bit different.
Well, I think a lot of people facet carve a neck, but the way Geo does it, lining everything off with the tape and everything.
Yeah, that's it.
You know, that's pretty much the method that I wound up saying, that's awesome. I can actually see that line, you know, without needing 3 pair of glasses. That's become the way I carve a neck at this point, you know, and I have standardized measurements based on what shape I want in the end. Really cool. I dig it.
I was going to ask a moment ago, Mark, because when we're talking about this idea of putting out ideas with, in this case, the way of carving the neck and that sort of process, I find with your videos, they're very much the start of a journey. You're putting out like a concept for other people to go and do and find their own ways to do it. Maybe I'm explaining how what your aim of your videos, but I wonder what drove you, what drove you and what drives you, because I feel your videos are a bit different now. Although I did come across your Great Guitar Build Off originally, so it was a stage by stage video.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've done a couple of Great Guitar Build Off videos, but the first one was I think the first one I did, I had this like what I thought it was a clever idea, right? And it was just basically I had built a neck that was a multi-scale neck that you could put on any guitar to make it multi-scale. And I thought, oh, that's clever, because basically all I did was make the parallel fret the nut, right? So you could put it on any guitar. And I thought, well, this is the best idea ever. Surely I'm going to win. And, you know, obviously I didn't. But that's always been kind of like the pursuit. The pursuit is try to find this interesting idea that really no one's thought of yet, and just kind of like go with it and, you know, throw it at the wall. And if it sticks, cool. If it doesn't, it was a dumb idea. And I have a lot of these dumb, crazy ideas, and they mostly have to do with just kind of like, just kind of veering away from tradition, really. And I love tradition. Like Todd, I'm a Strat guy. I will play that guitar till I die. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. So yes, tradition, but I'm not going to kind of follow that. I've never built a Strat, and I never will. And it's funny because like I know right now of ways where we don't ever have to do another fret job. Like there's a way out there right now, like a process, so that we never have to do a fret job. So it's just a matter of me trying to like formulate it and articulate it and put it in a package where it's basically approachable, because a lot of the things I do tend to have a lot of pushback, right? Because when you don't follow tradition and you kind of take the untrodden path, you get a lot of feedback saying that that's not the right way. So that's basically just my pursuit. My pursuit is just try to do something just a little bit different. That's it.
You know, if you find out a way of never having to level frets again, Big Guitar will be after you, Mark. They're buying ideas. No one will ever hear about it. That'd be the dream. And Owen, because am I right, Owen, that you're going to start videoing, or am I putting you under pressure?
Yes, I was actually supposed to start last weekend, and I cleaned out my workshop, which is, first of all, a success in and of itself, because my workshop looked like New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina times 20. But unfortunately, a family member got sick, so I had to postpone it this weekend. And I even bought a new camera. I bought one of these DJI Pocket things, which, by the way, lads, is absolutely fantastic. It has filters to make you thin. I'm not making that up.
What is that? Okay, tell me that.
Yeah, I'm not sponsored or anything, but yeah, I'm going to try that out and see, do I look like David Hasselhoff or something at the end of it. Anyway, so I'm supposed to be starting this weekend, and it's going to be Very much just, I have 2 subscribers at the moment, by the way, I'd like to point that out. And I haven't even put up a video yet, so I don't know why they're
we've
subscribed
linked
to
your
me.
video below, your channel below, Owen.
But yeah, I'm going to start recording this weekend, and it'll probably run into next weekend, and then there'll be editing, so it'll probably be about a month before it's up. But I have my wood, I have my templates, I have all my hardware that arrived during the week, so there's a Floyd Rose sitting here and a few other bits and pieces.
So what's the plan?
Yeah. Putting me on the spot, Gio.
Let's hear it.
Oilers.
I think it's going to be a Les Paul with I'm going to chance a carved top. I don't know how well it's going to go. And it'll have a flame maple top and an ebony board. And yeah, I'm probably going to go down the road of Fishman Fluence pickups because there's a Rammstein signature set, and I'm a big Rammstein fan. So I might try and get those in there. But I'm going to keep it real minimalistic. It won't have the toggle switch up the top left. It won't have the 4 potentiometers at the bottom right. It's going to be pretty damn simple in terms of controls. But yeah, so I'm really looking forward to it because I've been watching you guys and living through, and I don't mean you guys, Todd and Gio, you're included, of course, but Mark and everybody else in the chat making videos for years. I've been very passive in it. And I have put out stuff on social media, but taking the leap onto camera is the next step. And coming back to the conversation earlier as to why, I don't know, maybe somebody who watches my videos will go, yeah, that's somebody new who started it and they haven't done many. I can do that too. And there's another builder joins the community. So maybe that's the outcome of it.
Fantastic reason.
The more the merrier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Nothing great was ever discovered from sitting still, brother. You know?
Yeah.
You know
and it's kind of cool as well because I get to see all you guys every day in your videos, and like all I've really been to most people is a line of text in the comments. So at least, you know, we get to be more connected than if I'm putting out videos too.
I mean, I don't really make videos anymore, but I have to say that when I was peak video making, I enjoyed making the videos as much as making the guitars. I just love that process. So there's so many reasons to do it. A couple of quick questions appeared in the chat before I get on to the next thing I really want to talk about. The first one is just maybe a more of a rhetorical thing, or put an idea in your head. But Brad said, Mark, have you ever thought about the idea of a fret press with a torque wrench for a handle?
Yeah, Brad is absolutely glad he mentioned that, because if you think about the process, right? Like if you look at the tolerances for, let's just say, Jescar frets, right? And you're within those tolerances and you CNC a perfectly level fretboard and you CNC your fret slots and you place those frets in, there's only one real variable you're not controlling, and that is the amount of pressure that you're putting down on each fret. And so, yeah, I have thought of it. I don't have a solution for that for sure, but yeah, thank you, Brad. That's definitely been on my mind.
I don't know how you're not working for a manufacturer at this point, Mark. Like, you should just be patenting these ideas and making a fortune.
I would imagine you can't really make a fortune in the guitar industry doing these things. I just feel like like Mark said, doing anything innovative, you're going to get a pushback. It's not going to. But that's a nice segue onto, can you make your fortune with new tools? Or maybe not. I'm sure, Gio and Todd, you're not doing this to make your fortune. But do you mind if while we talk about this, if I share one of your bench critter videos? It's the one, Gio, you made where you're demonstrating how your things work, and we can talk a bit about what bench critters is and how you started collaborating.
Sure.
Let me share my screen. While I'm sharing, maybe you could just tell us, is there a way you can sort of summarize what bench critters is or how it came about?
Yeah, it's part of our chat probably for the last 2 years, isn't it, Todd? We go back and forth on every single subject woodworking related, and we talked about doing something together. It would be good to do some form of business together, and it just came to us that we had a whole heap of problems, things that we'd like to make a bit better in our workshop to make our life a bit easier. So we had a bit of a think about what those things were, and one of us, I think it was me, Todd, said, well, why don't we just be if we can design something up and get these things produced, because we're definitely not the only ones. If we're going to make something that solves a few problems, we could just do that, and it's another creative outlet, I guess, as much as anything else. Well, that's basically how we landed on the idea.
Yeah, it's a napkin drawing. I think the initial idea was drawn on a napkin, and then I got a lot of flack for that. And then Gio comes back with this brilliant idea of this wall mount solution. It was in the spirit of true collaboration. This thing was just born from conversation, you know?
Yeah, and we had a thing right at the start to say, anything that we do, absolute simplest possible solution to the problem, and everything that doesn't need to be there goes. That's kind of where we started from, wasn't it? And that's how we got to the blocks idea. We both use cookies, and we have done for years, but have needed something that you could pour stuff all over. You could actually lift your things up higher for clamping. That was always one of my issues, was lifting stuff. I just used to do the usual thing of chopping bits of wood underneath a guitar body or something, just to get my clamps and stuff underneath. I was like, there's definitely just a really quick and easy solution to do it. And Todd came up with the shape, and that was that really. We just went from there, and it's like, that will work.
So for anyone that's just listening, I've just shared a video of Todd and Gio's new project, the Bench Critters, and your first product you've launched, which are the Gecko blocks, which are like advanced cookies, bench cookies. Now, the problem I have watching this video is it just shows me how inadequate my bench cookies are. Because, the video, which by the way, Gio, I think is really beautifully edited, just shows all the different ways that you can use these tools in the workshop that I'm sure are great for woodworkers, but really straight away I can see how it works for guitar building.
Yeah, and I think the other part that we wanted to do was just because initially we did just talk about, we had a load of ideas, didn't we, Todd, just for things that will make the lutherie world a bit easier. And then I was like, actually, it does apply to stuff. Having been a furniture maker before I was doing this, I was like, if we just add an extra 2 and make it do this, this, and this, and be able to accommodate a certain amount of weight, actually, it will be helpful across the board to woodworkers. So that's kind of what we did.
Yeah. And I didn't really design the shape. It was a collaboration. I can't tell you how many pictures we passed back and forth of little alterations that we made. And no, that's the wrong angle. It was a collaboration. And that's the part of it I love the most. It's not just that we've been able to come up with something that solved the very problems that we knew we had. It's what that became, really cool. Simple.
Yeah.
It's good fun getting to that point, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, but I think you're simplifying this an awful lot, lads, really. I mean, in fairness, this must have taken months to get right, between working with suppliers who are in a different part of the world completely, and finding out who to work with, and getting molds done up and samples sent backwards and forwards. I mean, this isn't something you just wrote on a napkin and it appeared on the desk a week later.
No, the long version of the story spans 18 months, I think, and a learning curve like this, like in terms of, I was saying to Todd, producing something yourself in a shop and selling it, or producing something that you can potentially scale up if there's a bit of demand for it. Man, the difference in the amount of things that you have to do is just unreal. But I mean, highly uninteresting unless anyone is actually thinking about getting a product produced that they can scale and sell on scale if they want to. But yeah, it was a huge amount of work, and the molds, the design, the molds, the CAD designs for it, testing the different compounds and everything was endless, wasn't it? For about 18 months, we went round and round, test, refine, and then eventually that landed on what we were happy with.
Yeah, by the time we got the prototypes that we eventually settled on, saying, yeah, this is it, This is the ones we were, it felt like it wasn't new anymore, you know, but I will tell you, it was a completely new feeling when we were able to start filming these videos and start talking to people about it. That kind of recharged that whole initial inspiration thing that we felt when we first started doing it again. And we're still riding that wave, you know, now.
Yeah, I think we were both ready for that, weren't we? After like getting to the point of launching it and just putting something out just to say, look, we've done a thing, it's here, seemed like a long way away when you start. And it seemed a lot of the time like it was getting a bit further away, and then it actually happened. It's like awesome.
Yeah.
All different set of things.
A lot of fun.
So
And then to make matters worse, you're probably doing that in tandem with your next product and your next product and your next product.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
There's a few things that are on the list and a couple that are already in the works now. So we wanted to do something. There are a couple of bits that will add on to the Gecko blocks to make them do some more stuff. So that is already pretty much there, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Just to connect to what Owen was saying, if you're having all these prototypes done and you're in different countries, is it all basically being made in America and then Todd shipping it over to you, Gio, or is it no? They're both shaking heads. No,
they get produced in China. We've had what did we talk? We talked to American companies. We talked to Mexican companies. Ones in Europe,
Taiwan, Europe, all over the place.
What we wanted to do, and then got in touch with in fact a few, landed on one that was like, yeah, we can do all of this. And my goodness, they are solution providers, aren't they?
Man, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe how great these people have been to work with. How easy that process was once you send it to them. You know, it's like, bing, we're done. You know,
well, yeah,
incredible.
Yeah.
And on top of that, when you start to think about having prototypes made and stuff like that, and I'm sure some of you guys have probably been through that, but for the cost that we could have had the prototypes in America done for, we got the whole first batch made. You know, I mean, it didn't come down to money. It never has. It was who could give us the product we wanted at the quality level we demanded. And finding an American company that could actually produce these things on a mass scale was virtually impossible past the prototype stage. It was really an eye-opening experience and something, you know, that we both learned so much from.
Is this something that you're... So I've seen on one of your channels or the Bench Critter YouTube channel a bit of this, because I saw you showing a box of all the prototypes. But is this sort of story and journey something you want to share at all somewhere? I'm not saying do it now, but you will be making videos about, or is that just it's in the background, we don't need to know about it all?
No, we thought we would. I mean, part of the idea for the channel was to do to make the product development journey a transparent one, wasn't it, Todd? I don't know how much appetite there is for that. Do you know what I mean? There might be, but it might just be one of those things that falls completely flat. Because sorry, go on.
I was going to say, because I think there is, from my point of view, because I haven't seen many reviews of it. I've seen a couple. I've seen Mark's one, which I'm sure Mark will mention in a minute, but I don't remember them really talking about the fact that you have collaborated in designing something and you're in different countries. I've heard you referred to as two guys in sheds that have come up with this idea, which I think gives it personality. Brilliant. But that whole idea that you've designed something across continents is pretty impressive, I think, and the sort of modern story of working in itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty amazing. Like, we live in quite a cool time that we can do this now. But
We do.
I don't think we could have, tell me what you think, Tom, but I don't think we could work any more efficiently or get any quicker results than we do from being together or working the way that we do now.
No, actually, I think that works out better. I mean, it makes us, it's ever present that there's times when we talk to each other that we know There's important decisions that have to be made. There's things we're talking about, and where it feels, you know, you feel a little bit of that pressure to get this decision made that we wouldn't feel if we were sitting in the same room with each other. You know, time is precious, and that's the whole driving thing behind it, I think. You know, it's awesome. It's been a great journey. I can't wait to do it many, many more times.
Maybe we'll share a bit of it on video then and see. But it's getting to that point. It's discriminating, isn't it? It's how much stuff we leave out of the journey, because there's a lot.
Yeah, there is a lot.
Maybe in your memoirs in another 20 years we can look back at it.
Yeah, there's also something to say about the impactfulness of that final product, you know, and how it punches you. So if you don't see that evolution and progress and you just see that final progress, it is pretty impressive. And so that's one of the things that I wanted to mention, that you have this tool that has so many uses, but it's also beautiful. It's a beautiful tool to look at. And we all love beautiful tools. Like, what's some of my favorite tools are Crimson tools, just because they look fantastic. Yeah. And so I think that part of it is really important, where you have that kind of surprise. And I wanted my reaction to be genuine. So like, I didn't read anything. I didn't do anything. I just opened the box and went, wow. Just wow.
Cool. Cool, Mark. That's really awesome. That's really awesome of you to say, man. That's humbling. And honestly, we both felt the same way. When I got my first set that were bagged up like they are, you know, I was like, oh man, this is so awesome. We made this. You know, that's such a cool thing. I was so happy, and still am.
I do a lot of support for companies that are starting up, and they've in my day job, and they've gone through Kickstarter and got all this money, and all of a sudden they're like, shit, we actually have to make something now, and then they're trying to go to China and find suppliers, and a lot of those guys don't make it. They burn through funds really quickly, and they end up having nothing to show for it at the end. And the fact that you guys got it across the line, like, I know the difficulties you guys faced, and it's really impressive. I am, however, pissed off because my set of gecko blocks that I ordered, and I had to order them through a friend in New York who's shipping them to me. I thought it would be here today for the live stream. And my tracking says they're being delivered today between 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock. It's now 2 o'clock, and they're still in Dublin. So I was hoping to have the box here and open them up and go, ta-da! But they're not here yet. I can't wait to get them, though.
That would be cool.
I cannot believe that you did that. I said to Todd, didn't I? I think Owen's ordered a set and had them sent to somebody in the States. I said to you before, Owen, I'll have a set for you. Don't, you know?
No, I don't. If I'm supporting a business, I don't want any.
I'll get a set to you.
No, I think the most important thing about supporting a business, and I'm really passionate about this, is that you know, people seem I don't know if this is the same in any other country, but certainly here in Ireland, if people go to friends' businesses, there's almost an expectation for special treatment or discounts. I don't think that's supporting a friend's business. I think if you want to support a friend's business, you just buy it as it is, at the price it is, at the conditions they are, and you do it that way. So that's why I really just wanted to get this set the right way and make sure you guys get the full cut of the pie. But I just can't wait for them to get here. And they're going to be on my first video. So how cool is that?
Oh, yeah. Amazing.
Awesome. Well, you know, on our side of that, though, Owen, there's a part of this that we feel like we feel some responsibility to the community to give back, because that's where our inspiration came from, at least partially, you know. So don't think that we're over here only considering how much money we can make for these things.
No,
an
shag off.
thing.
No, absolutely shut up now, Todd. We want to see you on a pile of money like Scrooge McDuck in about 5 years.
I think that the fact that you've made something that is so thought through and good is giving back to the community. It may have come from the idea of the community, but you're making something for them. And I've got to say, at the moment, there's a link in the description, and it's February 2025. At the moment, you can only get them in America. I'm sure that will change if anyone's watching in the future. But just looking at the price that they're selling at America, I was surprised how cheap they are, because bench cookies aren't that cheap, just the standard ones. I was sort of surprised that these are a comparable price, and you get more of them in a pack than a normal 4-pack. But anyway, I'm not interfering with how you price things. As we've talked about before, that's an almost impossible thing for any of us to know what to do. But yeah, I think they're great. Great. They look great. I haven't got them yet, obviously.
You will.
Owen's already put put them on eBay, ready for anyone that wants them in the EU.
Good luck with that, and let me know how it goes.
I mean, one of the things about this community is if I don't know how you do all your shipping, but in the future, if you needed a home base, like an address for if you were doing sort of drop shipping from Europe or the UK, there's some of us here to help always with things like that.
Always, yeah. Everybody help.
Very, very cool.
That may well end up being something that we could do as well. We're looking at actually we've been approached by a couple of companies who I probably shouldn't say who they are, but we've already been asked whether we want to do distribution in Canada, and there are a few other options as well, which is great because besides the UK, Canada is probably the most requests that we've had to get them to, which would be really good. But we're also talking to woodworking schools, the first of which is Charleston Woodworking School, which is near Todd. So the idea being that part of what we'd quite like to do is to get our stuff out, everything that we get done and produced out to woodworking schools. Ideally, we'd like to just give them the stuff that we make to actually help them in the school, but also then to make them cheaper, as cheap as we can possibly do them for anyone that are students at the school. So it'd be quite a good way of getting, what we thought about initially was that would be a great way of getting stuff, prototypes and things looked at, used, getting some really great feedback and that kind of thing. And they all seem, everybody that we've talked to so far seems to be quite up for doing that.
They do. I mean, that's one of the things why we send out sets to people like Mark, because we value that feedback, that's one of the things, and his reaction was a really elating. I was so happy to see his reaction to that because I knew he was going to give us honest feedback on it. He's not the kind of person that's going to hide that. He's going to be honest about it, and that's the reason we chose him and everyone else we've chosen too. And as far as deciding the price, oh my God, you don't even want to know what we went through trying to decide what to sell these.
But yeah, good luck for all of that. And as Curtis has already asked in the chat, but I know from the way Gio was talking, it's a bit secretive what your next products are going to be. But it's good to know there's some lot in the lineup. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, there are a few things. And I think all I don't want to do is just put something out there and then our plans change and we end up producing something else and popping that out there. But yeah, I think we got a list of about 10 initial things that we want to get done in that.
Yeah. And Curtis, don't worry, brother. We'll get you a set one way or another.
We will.
And I like the way when Mark was talking about liking the object as a sort of object of beauty itself. I keep noticing in the background I've got this. This is Mark's. I wonder, I've been looking for this clear sheet of Perspex.
Oh, there it is.
It was under there. Anyway, this is Mark's. I've 3D printed his fret holder. I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, that's so cool, man. I love that thing.
It's just now become a sort of a shelf work of art. But there you go. I will use it, but I just like the look of it. That there's something about a tangible object that's also functional that is absolutely brilliant. I think back to guitars in some ways. The fact that people that are hand making their guitars have that extra something to it that makes it feel like it's a tactile thing that sometimes I don't get when I walk around guitar shops. I think I mentioned before, last time I went to a guitar shop, which was I think in December, I was very underwhelmed by almost every instrument in the shop. It was quite odd. It's very different to when I walk around a guitar show looking at bespoke instruments, where everything had something unique to it. There are a few brands that still had something I really liked in the shop, but not many. But maybe I'm just getting a bit jaded by the big brands because I'm annoyed that the smaller builders aren't out there in the same way. But then they wouldn't be smaller builders.
We were, we wouldn't possess that special thing if we became the mass
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
that's, it has to be that way. That's the standard.
But if you become a chef, you immediately have disdain for McDonald's, right? So it's the same thing. I looked at a Fender Telecaster thin line in a shop recently, one of the ones that has an F hole cut in it, and where the F hole is cut, the lazy feckers over in Fender didn't even bother to sand it. There's all this rough edge grain, and then they just slapped paint on top of it, and it literally looks like something that should be coming out of an AliExpress box. And they wanted €900 for it. So I think it's okay. Like, we don't build their volume, but we spend time getting the small details right. We sweat the small details, and I think it's okay to be a little bit critical of the stuff that's mass produced and doesn't have the same care, attention, and love put into it.
But just to trail ahead, we've got Andrew Knight coming on in a few weeks' time, who works for Jackson, and we've got Mike from In Gold Audio, who's a bespoke builder, to talk about design. So design from the point of view of people that both studied and taught design, but now work as a small builder and work as a designer for a big company. And I'm intrigued to hear how a conversation goes between people that are designing small one-offs and big, like, mass market things. Because I think their approach is probably going to be very similar.
I would imagine so. It's all about what happens after that design.
Exactly.
When they come up with that one design, that's their baby. It's not until after they sell thousands of them that it becomes mundane and unimpressive. I think that's what it is. There's something about that whole one-off. Let's build one of these. It's the only one there'll ever be. That's special.
Yeah, 100%. Hey, so on that note, we haven't really talked much about your background, Gio, in guitar building, apart from how you sort of got into it. But is there a way you really define what your instruments are and how you make them? Because they're obviously one-offs. What is the drive behind your business?
Yeah, I think initially, I'm a woodworker. The easiest way of saying it is that I'm a woodworker first and foremost. I think that's what comes through in my guitar. So I tend to try and do the nicest possible thing with the best possible wood I can get my hands on, which is not necessarily the most expensive, but just the most interesting. As my site, I think I'm long overdue for updating that. I go for classic type of stuff. I spent a few years pretty much just building tellies and building nice versions of tellies because it is my go-to guitar. It's my kind of benchmark guitar that I measure all others by. I love tellies, but simplicity is pretty much what I like.
So I'll share your Instagram then, if that's maybe a bit more current. But for anyone listening, I've got Gio's Tornelli Guitars Instagram account up, but there's links to everyone's in the description below.
Oh, so that's my Les Paul. Oh, that Les Paul. That's a good example of what we were talking about earlier. That's an elm top on the Les Paul, which I think was like 35 or 40 euros. Yeah.
Yeah, that thing's beautiful.
So I do kind of like to find those unusual bits of wood that other people don't tend to use, but for no good reason.
Yeah, look at those inferior cookies in the background there.
I should take that off.
We had Jason from Maybury Guitars on last week, and one of his guitars, which had this cool top, was a chopping board that he bought at a flea market. So yeah, it doesn't have to be an expensive thing to
no, that one there is so the one on the left, the caramel kind of colour one, that's canary wood, which again was about 40 euros or something. But I have you probably see just when you scan through, there's that kind of look that I go for most tops.
It's just very warm, I think.
Applewood.
Yeah.
In fact, one at the shiny, the glossy one there is Applewood. There's me with Chris Garland. We both did the Italy Guitar Show a couple of years ago.
Chris is coming on soon. We haven't finalised the date yet, but I'm looking forward to speaking to him.
He makes beautiful stuff. Like
he does, man.
He did the guitar. I think it was the one. I can't remember what wood he used now, but for the same GGBO year, the year before we went to do the show a couple of years ago. It was truly beautiful. It's a different thing making acoustic guitars.
So I can see here, for example, on the headstock, is the headstock there with the design on it? Is that CNC'd?
No,
No, it's all hand carved.
yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah. That was the most important prize given out that year in GGBO, I think, wasn't it? Tidiest workshop.
Yeah.
that's as close as I came to winning anything.
Do you know what? People, we talk about workshops quite a lot, but my workshop at the moment is the worst mess it's ever been in because I've got so much happening. I've got a deadline, and I dropped a pen this morning. It took me 5 minutes to find the pen I dropped, and I was thinking, what I just need to do is take an hour out and tidy up, and then be able to find this pen. I'm sure some of the things I'm working on are getting damaged because they're just under books and stuff, but I don't know. They're not for clients, so it doesn't matter too much. They're all test things, but still.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that does like a tidy workshop. I think if my workspace is clean and tidy, then I think my work will be clean and tidy. I'm of that mindset, you know.
You're right. That's absolutely right. I mean, some people function in controlled chaos a little better, but when it comes to making stuff, you know, if you want to be perfect, man, I need a clean space. And it's not always that way for me. I've got so much crap in here, man. You know, it's hard to keep control of it because I'm the world's worst about, you know, I'm a squirrel when it comes to seeing a new file or something like that. I have to have that thing. So I wind up with all these tools that I'm not nearly as impressed by as I thought I would be. Gio could tell you some stories about this.
Matt, every morning, that's how my morning goes. I wake up and I have an Amazon link on my phone, and it's from Todd going, "Oh, that'll be here in 2 days' time. Just order this, and it'll be a new tool."
I've got to say, on Todd's Instagram here, the last few posts are all, including the bench critter stuff, new tools. So that's
yeah.
In fact, I think there's a few tools I bought, Todd, because you've used them. There's definitely a honing file that I bought, Sackler honing file. I saw you use it. Well, that's an improvement on what I've got. Hey, Todd, briefly, I'm just going to try and find back when we're talking about your guitars being suitable for that death metal look or playing anyway. Is there a way you might sum up your instruments or your
No, not that I can think of. I mean, that was an accident right there. The way that I drew that out in Inkscape, that particular guitar you're looking at. And it's ultimately a telly, you know, it's lipstick on a pig when it comes right down to it. I just changed the shape of, I thought it needed to be something interesting. It was for the GGBO, and it took me like 12 hours to sand that bevel clean and not have any stain bleed on it. But when it comes to defining a style, I don't know. I said in the beginning of this, I think I'm still looking for that. I like trying out, like the first version of that guitar. You're scrolling down past it right now. I tried to foil leaf the bevel around the whole edge, and I never could get it to turn out like I wanted. That guitar is in a burn pile now. You know, I burned it and started all over again. But then I try to do that kind of stuff right there, that rosewood top when you're going past. That's my attempt at being closer to what Gio does. You know, a little bit more elegant. So I don't know. I can't really say I've subscribed to any one thing. I'm still looking for that. I don't know what it is. I like the creation aspect of it all, really.
Yeah, that is a very sensible response. The understanding of the making is something I can relate to.
Yeah, I figured you probably would get that. Now, all you guys, you know how that is. Mark, man, your stuff's like just sick, dude. Sick. I love it. And I don't have the tools you have. I've never been into. I've never really looked to get a CNC machine because I feel like I need to master all the handwork before I start trying to get into that. Now, maybe that's a crutch, maybe that's a cop-out, I'm not sure, but I really enjoy that solitude and that quietness and that handwork. There's something about that that really soothes me. And I'm sure, as you guys have seen many times, I got a screaming case of ADHD, and I need that focus. You know, that's the only time where I feel like that's controlled. And I think that's probably what it does for me most, other than the passion and the inspiration that I get from it. It controls that racing, you know. I can't think of any other thing that has ever allowed me to focus on one thing the way guitar building does. Music come close, but still not quite there.
You know, I also get that from cooking. I don't know if you guys cook, but that same type of sort of like meditative aspect from it.
Yeah. I do too. You have to, or you'll screw it up. You know, that's the thing. You have to be focused, or you just won't be any good at it.
It would be interesting to compare everyone's cooking styles with their woodworking styles and see if there's some sort of link. Like, am I as messy as I am in my workshop? Do I like to do it different every time, or am I looking for a specific pattern and recipe?
How do I combine alcohol with guitar making?
That's not a safe combination.
It is with cooking.
It is. It is, I have to say. But you don't want to run a 3 1/4 horsepower router after you've had 12 beers, you know, or I don't.
Well, your workshop does have the Irish flag, Todd. So, you know, you've got the green, white, and gold. So,
you know, I got to bow to the motherland at some point.
Oh, sorry. Quick question. Have you and Todd actually ever met in person?
No. I'm doing my
what does that mean, really?
As long as possible. We're going to have to do that.
I've come closer to meeting Gio than Todd has. I was in Italy 2 months ago, and I got an Instagram message from Gio going, "Is that your motorbike I just walked past?" And I was like, yes, it is. But we didn't catch up, so we're going to catch up the next time I'm over there.
Yeah, I think that was when you were at Sound Expo. I was going to say to you, because I saw what you were saying on one of these a couple of months ago about ordering a bunch of stuff, picking it up in Europe and taking it back with you. If you want to get, if I give you all my wood suppliers and the guys that I'm in touch with, if you want to order a bunch of stuff, get it sent to me, you can pick it up here, because your mark-based stuff that you do is like an hour up the road from me.
Yeah, I can't believe it. So I've gone over to Italy so many times to the mark-based factory and chatted there, and it's literally around the corner from Gio. It's crazy.
Crazy. That's it. Well, but this is a good place to end. The idea that we're a massive world community, yet there's these weird things that bring us together and cross over and get us close to each other. I've put links for everybody's YouTube, website, etc., including the Bench Critter stuff, in the description. I'll add the last time Todd was on as well. And just to let you know that next week, so it'll still be on Thursday, but we can do a slightly different time. We're going to do it at 10:30 my time, because we've got Corey coming on from Australia, but a luthier that he's been in contact with from Japan. So we're going to have another sort of take on things. I don't think we've had anyone that's been a luthier in Japan. I know Scott spent time there, but it'll be interesting to hear what it's like for wood supplies and tool supplies and things like that, I think.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite tools come from Japan.
Yeah, absolutely. I spent ages trying to pick which Japanese chisels to buy. So thank you again, Gio. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
Good luck with the quizzes.
Great to catch up with everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone that's been live in the chat. And if you're watching in the future, leave a comment, maybe tell us where you're from. It'd be good to see how around the world this community is watching this. So thanks everyone, have a great week and see you next week.
See you guys.
Bye.
Take care, guys.
The Guitar Builders Collective is a group of like-minded people from all around the world at different stages of their guitar building journey. You can join us over on our forum to seek advice or share tips on guitar building processes, materials and tools, or just to share your builds. On YouTube, we have a regular podcast of guitar building chat where you can join the live stream or watch back on past episodes. Our Instagram page shares posts of members' builds and links you direct to their accounts. And for those of you on Facebook, we've got a private group that you can join, share and chat along with. The Guitar Builders Collective is a welcome and open space for all, so do pop by and say hi.